the home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. Finally, we're back in the saddle again. That's right, finally doing a normal, regular podcast day, but doing a lot of live streams this past week, by request, of course, because the common Joes and Sallies in the know had requested, but now I've got to get in here and get some accolades that I'm running behind on to those common Joes and common Sallies in the know, because y'all make this show go. And today's show is going to be about Con Time Deion Sanders being con time, as he always is. Alabama struggling mighty badly, and Oklahoma doing what they're supposed to do, but yet, to me, getting disrespected in the polls just a little bit. Let's talk about it. Here they come once again. It's the Outlaw Posse now, in effect. And let's get right to it here. The four horsemen shout-outs of the day go to Richard Burton, Chicken 1515, Shane Moore, and Rick Birdwell are saddled up and they're mounted up and they're ready to go. They got their badge because they're in the Outlaw Posse. Speaking of which, we have 4 new members in the Outlaw Posse, and they go as follows. James Justin Goss, Nellie Martin, and the Gov are now mounted up and saddled up and they're ready to go. They got their badge, they're deputized, and they'll also be in line for that random 4 horseman shout out, as well as maybe be the comment of the day. All it is $2.99 a month, 75 cents a week. It's a little join button, next subscribe button. If you're on a YouTube, if you're on a Apple phone, you may have to go to your laptop or your computer because it doesn't mesh with YouTube. Memberships. Also, we had some donors to the program this past week. 56 timer, 1LTHRNK, Marty King, JD Wilmoth, Rhino 26, Cyphus, JMK, and D Kreitzer all made great donations to the program. Appreciate the hell out of that, guys. We also have a sponsor today for today's show. We have Michael Jordan, handcrafted knives with sheaves. You can reach Michael at 205-242-2658 or at mtjord10@gmail.com. This guy, as you can see here, he gave me this great handcrafted with sheathed knife. Well, I got it at Tanny Hill State Park this past weekend, as well as the Back to the Future Hot Wheel car that you'll see pinned up on my wall as well. Now, getting right to it here. Seems like Con Time Deion Sanders pulled one out of the oven there at the last minute. Almost burnt that shit against Colorado State, who give up 50 points in regulation to Washington State last week. It's a little misleading because they had basically held them to 28 points in regulation, and they ended up scoring 43 through overtime procedures and whatnot. But the problem I have with Con Time this time is the fact that he's playing that guy Travis Hunter 2 ways. Well into the season. I can understand maybe early on doing it as some kind of gimmick, but you're putting the boy in harm's way, Deion. Once again, it's a selfish act on your part. And y'all can play this off and say, well, Travis Hunter wants it that way. Well, you're the head coach, and you're supposed to be the adult. And just like the guy from Colorado State, Jay Norwell, said, you don't act like an adult, man. You wear your little Power Ranger glasses to the press conferences and whatnot. You don't have a problem with you wearing a hat. I only have a problem with you wearing your Power Ranger glasses. Just don't get mad when people call you out on that shit, man. And don't put your players in harm's way because you want to do some kind of gimmick to call attention to yourself. That's exactly what you're doing with Travis Hunter, man. You're putting him in harm's way, in my opinion. And luckily, the kid is going to be out for the next 3 weeks. And why I say luckily is because there's some pretty big teams coming up, Oregon and whatnot, USC, those kind of teams. And it was bound to happen. I said it last week. I said he's going to end up getting that boy injured. And what happened? He got him injured. And I'm just tired of the fake love. I mean, the announcers for that game, man, they didn't say the word loving about 20 times. It was at least 19 times. He's loving on him. He's loving on him. He's loving on him. No, he's not. Deion's about Deion. Y'all going to learn that real soon. He got these first 3 games out of the way against teams that really ain't as good as what people think they are, especially TCU. They'll hang their hat on that one because they went to the national title game last year. But believe me when I tell you, TCU, to me, is a very overrated team. We all know Nebraska is not Nebraska of the 1990s anymore. So going forward, we're going to find out exactly how good Deion Sanders really is. If he can beat Oregon and USC and all these other teams, well then, hey, what he's doing might work. He might win a lot of games. And you're thinking to yourself, well, maybe then you'll probably apologize. No, I'm not going to apologize because it has nothing to do. And that's where y'all get this whole thing wrong. It has nothing to do with how many games con time Deion wins. It has to do with the kind of person he is. And he's a con man. He's a narcissistic bully. And I don't give a shit if he wins 3 national titles in a row. He's still that person that I just said. Now let's get on to some more topics because we don't want to talk about con time Deion too long, or his groupies and him will probably get a tent in their pants. We'll move on with the comment of the day. As promised, for those people in the Outlaw Posse, one lucky member gets to be the comment of the day, and it is Brian Johnson Arm Wrestling. He says, even as bad as they were, speaking of Oklahoma last year, they were 5 close games away from winning 11 games. 4 they lost by 3, and 1 they lost by 7. And that is the comment of the day. Now moving on to juicier subjects like the Crimson Nation, that being the Oklahoma Sooners and the Alabama Crimson Tide. The Oklahoma Sooners did exactly what they were supposed to do this past week, once again, handling a team that was very inferior. And a lot of people will say that they didn't do it against SMU, but I said last week that I thought that would be a close game because SMU is an up-and-coming team. They've got them a nice little membership now to the ACC. They're back in the big time. And SMU's donors are, from what I understand, they're coming through big time. They've raised over $100 million. But that's neither here nor there. It's another topic for another day. But Oklahoma had a great day against Tulsa, one of their in-state rivals, I guess you could say. Dylan Gabriel had 421 yards passing, 5 touchdowns. Barnes had 13 attempts for 68 yards and a touchdown. And Farouk had the most receptions with 6 receptions, 126 yards, and 1 touchdown. What else can you ask? I mean, that's exactly what you're supposed to do, right? They scored 66 points on Tulsa. Yeah, they struggled a little bit with SMU, but SMU, not a bad team. And in the first game of the year against Arkansas State, they took care of business once again. Now, those aren't great big-name schools to most people, but they've done what they were supposed to do. There's been plenty of teams this year that haven't done what they were supposed to do. Baylor comes to mind losing to Texas State. Texas Tech lost to Wyoming. So Oklahoma, in my opinion, probably should have moved up further in the poll than they have already. They started the season, if I'm not mistaken, 16th in one poll and 18th in the other. And I think they're up to 14th and 16th in the polls, respectively. Let's scroll down and look at the poll here a little bit. As you can see, we have Georgia number 1, Michigan number 2 in the AP poll, Texas, Florida State, USC, Ohio State, Penn State, Washington, Notre Dame, and Oregon in the top 10. Just scroll on down. You see that Alabama did drop in the poll from 10th to 13th. And Oklahoma moved up to number 16. It says they moved up 3 spots in that poll. And then over here in the coaches poll, it looks like they moved up 2 spots. So I don't understand. I'm an Alabama fan, but Alabama hasn't looked particularly well, even against, people will say, well, Texas is a big-time named school where Alabama got beat by. But they've struggled with South Florida last week. It's pretty embarrassing for me as an Alabama fan, that game as a whole. So to me, I think maybe Alabama probably should have dropped a little bit further. I would probably drop them about 15th or 16th. Moved Oklahoma at least up to 12th, in my opinion. LSU as well, in my opinion, should not be ranked ahead of Oklahoma at this point. But getting back to it here, now I would say that maybe this coming week that Oklahoma could prove themselves by going on the road and beating Cincinnati. I would have said that before, but now the fact that they got beat by Miami of Ohio sort of takes away from that. and the fact that Iowa State, who they play after that, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about that. If I am, correct me in the comments section. Iowa State lost to Ohio. So Oklahoma's next two opponents have lost to MAC schools. So it's not going to help Oklahoma's strength of schedule and impress any of the voters anytime soon. So sadly enough, Oklahoma, in my opinion, will probably have to wait till they play Texas to prove themselves as being worthy maybe of a top 10 ranking. Even if they were to, I'm not trying to be blasphemous here, but even if they were to lose to Texas in the Red River Shootout, as people are now asking me to call it, I think if it was a close game, that maybe Oklahoma will get some respect and get pushed closer to the top 10 at that point. But they're going to have to definitely wait until Texas before they get any kind of accolades or respect, in my opinion. Now, moving on to my team, Alabama, they really struggled mightily. Now, they did bring in Ty Simpson, who is, I guess, the third-string quarterback now. I figured they'd bring in Jalen Milroe if Tyler Buckner struggled, but they didn't. They surprised me. They brought in Ty Simpson, and he done well considering the circumstances he was put in, and he ended up with 73 yards passing. Meanwhile, Roy Dale Williams probably bailed us out. He had, 17 attempts for 129 yards rushing. So Alabama might want to think more along the lines of maybe placating to the running game like old school Alabama. They got Ole Miss coming up, so it's going to be a hard ask. Now, Ole Miss does have a lot of injuries at the skill position players, so that might be the only saving grace for Alabama going forward, because we don't have a week off until, I think it's before the LSU game in October, if I'm not mistaken. So Alabama has a long week, a long way to go before they get an off week. So really concerned about my Alabama Crimson Tide. And the last thing I want to talk about before I get out of here is Pat McAfee. As you know, he was on stage. He's already went to ESPN, and people already accused him of being a sellout. So I was like, well, if ESPN offered me a job, I might take it as long as they allowed me the leeway to do things the way I wanted to and didn't try to censor me too much. But this past week, he is on there with Stephen A. Smith, who is a loudmouth, just monopolizing piece of crap to me. And Stephen A. Smith got on there stroking Pat McAfee, and then he walked off stage and was grandiose and all that kind of stuff. Pat McAfee has completely sold out, in my opinion, at this point. If he's on there licking up on Stephen A. Smith's ass, then Pat McAfee is absolutely, in my opinion, probably been corrupted a little bit by the woke agenda. I don't know. What do you guys and gals think about all that? Drop in the comment section, let me know. And that's all I got to say about that. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Also, there's a little heart down here if you want to hit that heart, make a one-time donation to the program. Just throw a few dollars in the coffers. Also, you can join the Outlaw Posse for $2.99 a month, 75 cents a week. Get your badge, get deputized, get your Four Horsemen shout out periodically, as well as maybe be the comment of the day, like Brian's arm wrestling was today. I may have got his name wrong there. But that, I'm out of here. KMCA to all the other teams, class is now officially dismissed.